So when you look up at the night sky, I mean, really look at it, what do you see?
A giant rock, right. That's what we're all taught.
Right, a giant rock floating in space, a dusty, silent satellite that controls the tides.
Gives us a nice harvest moon once in a while.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But according to this massive stack of documents we have in front of us today, that is completely wrong.
It's a radical departure from the textbook astronomy we all learned. And calling it a departure is, well, it's an understatement.
Radical is putting it lightly. We are talking about the moon not being a natural object at all.
Not at all.
We're talking about it being hollow, metallic, a manufactured planetary warship that's been parked in our orbit for the last 100 million years.
And the kicker, it wasn't built by aliens.
No, it was built by us, or, a version of us.
That is the core premise we are diving into today. It's a lot to take in.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are unpacking a truly fascinating collection of materials from an organization called MicroCosmic International Culture Creative Ltd.
And an author known as Microstar.
Right. And I want to be really clear here right off the bat. This isn't some sci-fi novel pitch. They present this information as a literal textbook for a new era of humanity.
And they claim this is truth derived from supernormal abilities and precognition.
So looking back at history through psychic means, not, digging up pot charts.
Exactly. And the scope here is just massive. We're not just talking about the moon. The sources cover everything from the extinction of the dinosaurs,
which they claim was a deliberate elimination event,
for the engineering of the human race by specific gods, to a secret civilization living inside the Earth right now.
It is a total rewrite of history, physics, and biology. And I love a good mind bender, so let's jump straight into the deep end. The moon. You're saying these documents explicitly call it a warship?
Explicitly. The source material describes the moon as an outstanding industrial art product from a prehistoric human civilization.
Wow.
It says the moon is hollow, that it functions as a massive spaceship, capable of long-term cosmic travel.
An insight.
Packed with high-density energy sources, precise control equipment, and a formidable weapon defense system.
So it's the Death Star. It's basically the Death Star, but it's on our side.
In a manner of speaking, yeah. The text emphasizes that its main purpose wasn't just to light up the night. It was built for the defense of Earth.
Okay.
And this is where the source material does something really interesting. It takes existing mythology and just reinterprets it as literal high-tech history.
You're talking about the Yi shoots the 9 suns story, right?
That's the one.
I remember this from Chinese mythology. There were, 10 suns in the sky, scorching the earth.
And the archer Yi shot down 9 of them to save humanity.
Classic myth.
Yeah.
But in this source material, that wasn't a metaphor for a drought or a heat wave.
No. It describes a Star Wars-style event that happened over 4,000 years ago.
Okay, let's unpack this. So the 9 suns, they weren't actual stars. Because, obviously...
We'd be toast instantly. Right, physics would frown on that. According to this document, Yi shoots 9 suns. Those 9 suns were actually 9 massive alien warships.
Warship.
Part of an intergalactic fleet invading the solar system.
And the archer, Yi, was he just a guy with a really, really good bow?
No. In this narrative, Yi and Chainishi, they weren't just mythological figures. They were pilots, or commanders.
Of what?
They piloted the moon god ship. The source describes them engaging the alien fleet in battle and destroying it.
So when the myth says, Yi shot down the suns...
The source claims it means the moon's heavy weapon systems blasted alien capital ships out of the sky.
That paints a very different picture of the moon landing. If this is true, Neil Armstrong didn't land on a rock. He landed on the hull of a dormant battleship.
A battleship that saved us from an alien invasion 4,000 years ago. It definitely reframes the context.
Yeah.
And it forces you to look at the craters differently, Are those asteroid impacts or are they battle scars?
It makes the night sky feel a lot more active. But, okay, if humans built this thing 100 million years ago, we have to talk about the humans. Because 100 million years ago, mainstream science says we were really anything. We were small mammals.
Scurrying around, trying not to get stepped on by a T-Rex.
Exactly. And that brings us to the second major pillar of these documents. Human origins.
Yeah.
The source is very clear. We did not evolve from mud.
Or primordial soup.
No soup for us.
No soup. The text says, and this is a quote, God's creating man is not a myth, but real history.
And it names them.
It names specific entities, Nuwa from Chinese mythology, Yahweh from the biblical tradition, and others. It claims they use their own images to create different human races.
Yellow, white, red, black.
All of them using divine power, but not with clay.
Right, because the clay thing always felt a bit arts and crafts.
The source specifically debunks that. It says that's just a primitive understanding. It describes the process as using molecular layer substances to create humans instantly.
Molecular manipulation. So we're engineered beings.
Correct. The text argues that early humans just perceived this high-tech genetic engineering as magic because they didn't have the words for it yet.
That makes a weird kind of sense. If you showed a smartphone to someone from the Middle Ages, they'd call it a magic mirror.
Exactly. So we have these gods engineering us.
But what about the timeline? You mentioned 100 million years ago.
And this connects to what you said about the dinosaurs. The source outlines a timeline that it completely defies our textbooks. It talks about a giant era around 67 million years ago.
Giants. Like actual giants.
The source implies a race of humans much larger than us, maybe up to 5 meters tall.
Wow.
And here's the connection. It claims the dinosaurs were merely giant animals prepared for this giant race.
Wait, so the T-Rex? The Brontosaurus? They were just the livestock, the pets for giant humans.
That is the assertion. It completely flips the predator-prey dynamic we always imagine.
And the extinction, the big asteroid.
The source says that wasn't random, not an accident. It was a deliberate elimination event, orchestrated by the gods.
They hit the reset button.
Precisely. The text says the giant race had to be eliminated, so the giant animals, the dinosaurs, went with them. It all ties into a concept the source repeats over and over. The law of the universe.
This is that cyclical idea, right? Formation, stasis, degeneration, destruction.
Exactly. The idea that we aren't the first advanced civilization on Earth.
We're not even close to the first, are we?
According to this, no. The source states that Earth is destroyed and rebuilt every 100 million years. It even claims our current Earth is a reconstruction managed by gods like Yahweh.
After what?
After a previous nuclear war destroyed the first Earth?
A nuclear war in ancient history.
Yes. It describes ancient civilizations with technology far beyond ours. They used high-purity crystal ores for energy.
Crystals. That sounds very Atlantis.
It mentions Atlantis specifically, actually, but it goes further. It says they could manipulate matter with their minds and had flying cities.
Okay, but then they fell. Why?
And here's the warning the text seems very keen to deliver. These civilizations fall when they morally degrade.
So it's not just about technology, it's about ethics.
Deeply tied to ethics. The source warns that the previous civilization collapsed due to industrial pollution and human mutation.
A direct parallel to today.
It draws a very direct parallel. It's saying, look, you're doing it again. It frames the Industrial Revolution of the last 200 years, not as progress, but as a trap.
A trap, that's a heavy word. We think of the steam engine, electricity.
As liberation. But MicroStar argues the opposite. The text suggests humanity was forced into this industrial age, which is alienating us from our spiritual potential.
So by relying on machines, we forgot how to use our minds.
That's the argument. We used to have telepathy, precognition, but we focused on external tech engines, smartphones, and we let our internal technology atrophy. We're technically advanced, but spiritually devolved.
It's interesting how it blends this high-concept sci-fi stuff with a very almost cautionary tale. But I want to go back to geography for a second. We talked about the moon being hollow. But the source claims Earth is hollow too, right?
It does. It completely challenges the solid core model. It claims the North and South poles aren't just ice caps, they're gateways.
Gateway.
Deep holes leading to an inner world.
Like journey to the center of the Earth.
Very much so. It describes continents, oceans, mountains, all inside the Earth. Even says there are 5 distinct countries down there.
And who lives there? Please don't say dinosaurs again.
Yo, dinosaurs this time. The inner inhabitants are described as the guardians of Earth. The text says these countries were established by moon people.
Moon people?
Yeah, the terminology is a little fluid, but it seems to refer to that advanced civilization that built the moon. They set up a colony inside the Earth.
So while we're up here arguing on the internet, there's a utopia of guardians living beneath our feet.
According to MicroStar, yes, and they've been watching. The source mentions a specific event about the poles, an axis flip.
What's an axis flip?
The claim is that 40,300 years ago, during that same alien invasion,
The one the moon fought off.
the Earth was besieged. This caused the Earth's poles to reverse, which triggered the Great Flood. It links it right to the time of Noah and Nuah.
It's really weaving everything together, isn't it? Noah's flood, Star Wars, Hollow Earth. It's a unified theory of everything.
Just not the one physicists are looking for. It connects the dots in a very unique way. And what's fascinating is how the source material positions itself. This isn't a novel. It's not a religious scripture. The documents call this a textbook for the new human.
A textbook. Like Chapter 1, you're a bioengineered construct. Chapter 2, the moon is a Death Star.
Essentially, the stated goal is to answer the big questions. Why are you here? Where are you going? It claims understanding this hidden history is essential for us to evolve.
But here is where it gets really interesting to me. Specifically about the source documents themselves.
The business angle.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're not just looking at text, we're looking at business documents. Valuations.
That is the part that grounds this in a very strange modern reality. Amidst all this talk of moon goddesses and interstellar war, there are financial figures.
Big ones.
Huge ones. The Yeshut's 9 Sons IP, the intellectual property for this story, is valued by big data at $5.2 billion US.
5.2 billion. That's a Marvel movie franchise valuation.
And that's not all. There is a mention of a water energy system, which they claim can solve the energy crisis, valued at $30 billion US.
30 billion. That's serious money.
And the organization, MicroCosmic, is actively inviting sovereign wealth funds to participate. They frame it as a reboot of human civilization.
So it's not just a philosophy, it's a pitch deck.
It's a venture capital opportunity to save humanity. It's the most 21st century twist possible. The world is ending. The moon is a ship. Here's our pitch.
That's wild.
But if you accept their premise, maybe using financial language is the only way to get our attention.
That's a fair point. You can't build a new civilization on good vibes alone. So if we step back and look at the whole picture here, we have a cyclical universe, gods as scientists, a moon that's a dormant protector.
And a hollow earth full of guardians. It makes the universe feel crowded.
And purposeful.
That's the key takeaway. In standard science, everything is a happy accident. Gravity, evolution, random mutations. But in this worldview, nothing is an accident.
The moon was built with a purpose. Humans were designed with a purpose.
Even the dinosaurs were removed with a purpose. It replaces chaos with a very strict cosmic order.
It's a law you can't escape unless you read the textbook and wake up.
That seems to be the idea. And realizing the 9 suns were battleships is step 1.
It makes you wonder about that water energy system. If the history part is true, hypothetically, then maybe the tech is real too.
Well, that would be the proof, wouldn't it? If they can actually produce a $30 billion energy solution from this ancient knowledge, then the history becomes a lot harder to dismiss.
Right. It moves from cool story to world-changing reality.
And that's clearly the intent. They want to integrate this mythology into the economy.
So we aren't just hairless apes who got good at making iPhones. We're fallen gods with amnesia.
That is the microcosmic pitch in a nutshell.
Well, it is certainly a lot to process. Moon warships, dinosaur pets, a $5 billion story pitch.
It's a synthesis of everything: business, spirituality, sci-fi, mythology.
And it definitely makes looking at the moon a different experience. Next time you see a full moon, you might not just be seeing a cratered rock.
You might be looking at the hull of the USS Earth Guardian.
Just waiting for the pilot to come back.
Exactly. But here's a thought to leave you with. In this narrative, truth is entirely dependent on perspective. We think we know history because we dig up bones. They say they know it because they can see it. So if the moon were proven to be a hollow ship tomorrow, if the hatch opened and a saucer flew out, how much of what you think matters today would still matter?
That is a heavy thought.
If our entire history is just a reboot after a nuclear war 100 million years ago, what does that make your 9-to-5 job?
It really puts the daily grind into perspective.
It's the ultimate disruption.
Well, whether you are ready to invest in the $30 billion water system or you just want to enjoy the sci-fi of it all, it's definitely a deep dive worth taking.
Absolutely. Keep your mind open.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Keep looking up. You never know who or what is looking back.
Observe, connect.